6 past 8. You're still tuning into News and Reviews with myself, Salila Makwidiri. And yeah, if you're just joining us, I'm going to be having an interesting conversation with Director of Vision Tactical Yaseen Theba, and we'll be talking about how it is just another video. It's just another violent crime that we hear about that's circulating on social media, and you have a wave of outrage that lasts a day or two before the next incident takes its place. And it's quite concerning the fact that South Africa remains one of the world's most violent societies. I'm sure you've seen the recent crime stats that were released by SAPS that show, I don't know, somewhat encouraging numbers, a decline in murders and violent crime. And the picture that they painted was still quite concerning. There's about 5,100 people who are still murdered between January and March this year. 5,100 people. That's an average of around 58 murders every single day. That's despite murder declining by around 9.5% compared to the same period last year, according to SAPS. Research from a lot of organizations. I think I saw one from the ISS, the Institute for Security Studies, and it was essentially cautioning against celebrating, those kind of improvements too quickly. They are arguing that behind the statistics, as always, lies a deeper crisis that is driven by organized crime, the advent of illegal firearms, domestic violence, gang related activities, and a criminal justice system that still struggles to deter offenders. Now, the question this morning isn't only why crime remains high, it's whether or not us, as South Africans, have become so accustomed to violence that we no longer are shocked by it. We'll be chatting to Yaseen Theba, Director of Vision Tactical Trainers via a virtual platform. Yaseen, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
The
Once again,
pleasure's all
we,
ours.
we find ourselves discussing crime, and this discussion propped up among our members because a simple sign like a hotspot area, crime hotspot area, just driving in some of the areas and you see these signs popping up all over the show. And I mean, this is concerning that we would take the time to put up a signage indicating that this is a hotspot area. And then when we have incidences in the same area, we're actually blaming the victims of these crimes, saying that didn't they see the sign and they weren't supposed to be in that area for that period of time. And this is a concern. This is surely an indication that we are becoming desensitized to crime and we are not tackling crime the way we should be tackling crime. And this prompted
And so sorry to interject, because I think that's a very, very important point to make. The fact that we're becoming desensitized, we become emotionally numb to especially violent crime, and it feels like all of us are just waiting for our day. We're all waiting for something to happen to us because it feels and looks like whatever measures you put into place, it is going to reach you. What does that do to how we respond to it then, to how we respond to the violence, how we respond to crime as a society when we've become so desensitized and emotionally numb to it, as you mentioned?
If there's not a single person that you meet today that can say they've never been affected, they're not affected by crime. Be it a small child going to school, they know that on their way to school they need to lock their doors, keep their windows closed, and pass certain intersections that are dangerous. Businessmen are concerned that their businesses might get robbed. There's now a threat of kidnappings. So everyone is affected by crime, and I mean, I think we've adapted so well to the situation that as South Africans, I mean, that's we are resilient, we adapt, but we should not confuse that adapting with surrendering. And I mean, that's a concern when we start accepting that crime is high, when we start accepting that this is the situation that we're in, and we are just going to be another number, another statistic. What we find, which is troubling, is that when we turn that resilience and adapting into acceptance, what we find is that people report less crime, people do less to protect themselves, and there is a ripple effect. We find that law enforcement also now don't take crime seriously because there's no pressure on law enforcement to investigate crime. It's become so accepted that we accept that we are going to get robbed, that we accept that this is a bad intersection. And the ripple effect of that, of course, is that in these areas, you find there's a decay of the area. People don't uphold the area. It's no longer safe, so no longer people are no longer passing through there, and people are no longer taking walks. We find that our public parks have started deteriorating, and this is all because of crime. We need to recognize that crime is affecting us. We need to channel our efforts instead of putting signage up to show people, or instead of posting viral videos. We need to start seeing how do we report these crimes instead of sending it
mm,
off onto social media platforms. Hand over the footage. Very often when we investigate cases, we find that we have to resort to social media platforms to see exactly what happened on the scene, instead of going to eyewitnesses, getting reports, seeing who took the footage, and getting a clear account of what happened on scene. So, I mean, these are some of the challenges that we are facing, and we need to recognize that taking crime, and making it or socializing it, making it so casual, we are actually hurting ourselves, and the risk of becoming another number in those statistics becomes stronger.
And I think that's the scary part, just being another number in those statistics. And speaking of stats, I mentioned in my intro, I think a bit earlier, the fact that SAPS, I think it was earlier in the year between January and March, essentially, they said they've, gotten a report of a decrease in violent crimes. Granted, murders are still quite high. I mean, if you have a murder rate in a country of around 53 people a day, that should be concerning. I don't think even countries that are at war experience those kind of numbers. Well, they're seeing an improvement. There's a slight drop, especially in violent crimes. From you guys' perspective, as an organization, Vision Tactical, always on the ground, are those reflective of the reality of what you guys are seeing on the ground? The fact that you don't see as many violent crimes as reported by the South African police services?
Look, we rely on the stats as a report card to see what initiatives are working, what initiatives are not working, and then again, of course, to zone in on those results and those stats, so that we can deploy to areas that are needed better resources. And we use those stats as a mechanism. A concern for us is that a lot of the violent crimes are no longer being reported, and I think that
Mm,
needs to be taken into consideration. It's no secret that police or confidence in the police is at the all-time low, and
mm,
this is of major concern that people are no longer reporting crime. Just to give you an indication, right now as we talk, in Fordsburg, on a public road, there was a body that was found.
mm,
We received multiple phone calls from people saying they passed the area, and this body was just lying on the floor. Our response officers are on scene at the moment, and they confirm that the person is deceased. This body was there from 4 o'clock this morning, and we're still waiting for police to come there. But again, people are so desensitized that we see someone lying on the road and we assume that it could be someone sleeping, or we assume that it's a person that passed away, but no one's going out getting help. And you have to ask a question: if this had happened in any other city in the world, what sort of
mm,
panic would be in that area? What sort of police resources would rush to that area to cordon off the area and ensure that proper forensics are there? If it was a murder, what sort of investigation and crime scene management would take place? But again, people are just going around shopping in that very same area, carrying on
mm,
buying their breakfast around in the shop right opposite where this body is lying. And this is a concern that people are not reporting crime. People
mm,
are not reporting what they're seeing. With murders, yes, we rely a little bit more on the statistics because there's a dead body. But I mean, other violent crime like hijackings, smash and grab incidences. While the stats are high, and we welcome improvements from the previous quarter, there is still concern that the stats are extremely high in comparison to other cities, other countries. Johannesburg is no easy place to live in. And I mean, we saw the arrest yesterday. A suspect commits a murder in the UK and they run to Johannesburg.
mm,
This is a concern. This is a concern that people think they can get away with crime in South Africa. We welcome the arrest. We welcome the message that South Africa is not a safe haven for criminals. But we need to clear the perception that, you know what, we are dead against crime. We are standing together against crime in communities. Being on a community group is not so that we can get posts of what's happening in the area to post on social media. Being on community groups, WhatsApp groups, panic buttons, community police forums, is a responsibility for us, and an obligation for us to
Mm,
become more responsive to crime so that we can deal with crime instead of putting up a board. It irritates me when I see a board saying public beware or hotspot area.
yeah.
Put up cameras there. Let's see who's robbing people on those intersections. And very often, it's the same perpetrators that are operating in the same area.
Mm, mm,
Engage with your private companies, engage with your police, and demand that, you know what, as a community, your area is safer.
mm,
And I think if we all join hands with the objective that we want to make our community safer, instead of saying, you know what, let's beware, let's become, I'm not saying don't take precautions. I mean, precautions are there, but let's be proactive in
mm,
in 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 in, in preventing crime. And I think that's the appeal we're making to our communities, to our listeners, to our clients, to say we can all join hands to make people safer, and get a more responsive approach by private security companies and the police, of course.
No, most definitely. I want us to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to touch on, I think, an aspect that was very, very important. The fact that you guys are now even relying on, social media, to detect some of these crimes. And the conversation that I want us to have when we come back from the break is the fact that are criminals becoming more brazen, or are smartphones simply exposing crimes that previously went unseen, things that we knew about or we read about but couldn't see happen in real time. And we now have the ability to do that by having these smartphones and social media having it circulate. But we'll have that conversation after this short break.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Right now, over 150 million children around the world are orphaned, facing hunger, hardship, and uncertainty. With Islamic Relief's Orphan Sponsorship Program, you can provide a child with access to education, nutritious food, essential healthcare, and a safe home. Your sponsorship is not just support, it's hope, security, and a brighter future. Be the reason an orphan child smiles again. Sponsor an orphan today with Islamic Relief.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Are you banking with convenience, transparency, and flexibility? With Al Baraka Bank's transactional banking account, you can enjoy convenient everyday banking designed around your needs. Benefit from zero fees on point-of-sale transactions and manage your banking easily through Al Baraka's secure mobile banking app and internet banking platform. From everyday payments to managing your personal or business banking, Al Baraka makes banking simple, transparent, and convenient. Visit albaraka.co.za to learn more. Al Baraka, your partner bank. Al Baraka Bank Limited is an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
22 minutes past 8 Central African time. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidira, and I'm still in conversation with the Director of Vision Tactical, Yaseen Theba. And we're having a conversation around crime and then how brazen it has become and whether or not us as South Africans are essentially becoming desensitized to it. And I think, Yaseen, before we went into that topic, you mentioned something very, very important. The fact that as private security companies and law enforcement agencies, social media and smartphones have now become a point of reference when you try to solve some of these crimes and figure out what happened. Are criminals becoming more brazen? You know, when you look at some of these videos that are doing the rounds on social media, you know, people just pulling up to people, guns at a restaurant, shooting you like that, and then walking away. Have these always happened? Are criminals always have been this brazen without shame in broad daylight? Or smartphones simply have, exposed crimes that simply just went on, but they were not seen as much as we're doing right now?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. Criminals have definitely become more brazen. We know that some of these criminals are getting away, being arrested numerous times, going to court numerous times, and getting bailed so easily and out on the streets the following day. This is frustrating for us, but it also gives these suspects a notion that they are above the law, that they can walk out from court, having been arrested numerous times in the past, and just carry on with their business. And that gives them the guts, the courage to walk in and commit crime the very next day. And this we're seeing that there's criminals that are now willing to risk it all. The cash in transit heists are a typical example. You see suspects walking out with AKs, 47s, firing in public spaces, randomly at traffic, and it's almost like a military style heist that we're seeing, something that you won't see in other countries. So yes, criminals are becoming more brazen, and yes, we are more exposed to it. In the past, we were not as exposed to it. But what this does is it also gives a feeling that these things are happening everywhere. The more it goes viral, the more it circulates on social media. We see that more and more criminals are thinking it's an easy way out. And we're seeing copycat gangs now starting to rob areas where they know they can get away with it, where they're seeing other suspects getting away with it. And of course, I mean, the fact that that suspects are getting bailed so easily, or cases are being thrown out of court so easily, and confidence in the police is so low. We find that people don't want to commit crime, and even if they do commit crime, they have to go to court, and now they're exposed to the suspects and the process of the court system, which isn't a pleasant experience. And these things all add to the torture that some of the victims have to go through, the trauma that they have to go through. And we see that as time goes, these suspects are becoming more brazen because this is the environment that we've created for them. And again, my appeal is when we stand up together and suspects feel that communities are reacting and communities are engaging with CPFs, with the police. There's coordination between the police. I mean, a typical thing just 2 weeks ago during the protests, the anticipated protests, we saw private security and police and communities work together to keep our communities safe. And there was this coordinated response where everyone felt safe. Crime stats for those 2 days that police were deployed was at an all-time low. We haven't seen that crime stats since the last elections. So it can be done, and the results are there. It just needs people to be more sensitive to what's happening around them, be more vocal, and of course to channel that energy in a coordinated approach between law enforcement, private security, the metro police, and of course, I mean, South Africa, as much as we say crime is high, we can clean it up, and I genuinely feel that there is hope. But we need to channel our resources collectively in a coordinated approach, and of course joining hands with all levels of society.
Very, very important. Just from a tactical and security perspective, we are now in the second half of the year. What trends are concerning you right now when it comes to crime? Because in South Africa, it almost feels like there's a season for everything. You have a season of kidnappings where you would have kidnappings of business people, one after the other, and then another season you would have cash in transit robberies and home invasions being on a high and being the crime that is dominating the headlines. From your perspective right now, what's concerning you? Just looking at the state of affairs right now as Vision Tactical, being on the ground and working so close with law enforcement.
Well, crime doesn't sleep. Crime doesn't hibernate for the season. So, I mean, we keep our ears to the ground. And again, I'll tell you that kidnappings has always been a concern. It's always been highlighted. And from our side at Vision Tactical, we've always been proactive in dealing with these kidnapping cases. But I mean, other crimes also concern us. Now that we're in the second part of the year, thank God and I mean, we make shukr every day that we through the load shedding phase. The load shedding phase posed a number of challenges for not only private security but for policing and for communities when it comes to crime as well. From a crime perspective, the load shedding part wasn't easy. We saw so many more incidences taking place when people were out of electricity. So that's one positive. But I mean, crime evolves, and depending on areas, depending on what we see, we then again adapt to how we respond. It's good to know that the elections is coming up, and there's going to be a lot of proactive measures as we build up to the elections. So that's something to look forward to, and we already seeing police starting to plan and see what can work at different levels. From a national level, the police are already looking at election planning. From a provincial level, we're already seeing some chatter about what the plans are for elections. But again, a concern at the moment is businesses with foreign nationals, and what approach do they take? How do they safeguard themselves? You've got a lot of different marches taking place by different groups. You've got the police that are doing raids on businesses. And to become compliant is a must now. To make sure that you as a business also don't get fined. So again, you to avoid the hassle of being raided all the time, we're appealing to businesses to make sure that the foreign nationals, if they do have foreign nationals, have got the right paperwork in place, or else don't employ foreigners, because you're just exposing your business to people coming, raiding. And we're seeing the criminal elements in there. We're seeing people now coming and extorting. We see people under the name of March to March or Dudula going to businesses under the name of political parties, also going to businesses and extorting business owners under the pretext that they're looking for foreign nationals. This is a concern, and again, the best way to avoid it is to make sure that you're compliant so that you don't subject yourself to this sort of intimidation or extortion.
Very, very important note. In closing, Yaseen, and this is a question that has always been lingering in my mind for a very, very long time, because the advent of private security, obviously, in South Africa has become, because of the fact that a lot of South Africans have lost confidence in our policing, and we know the shortcomings that SAPS has, whether it's with personnel or it's with infrastructure. Ultimately, it saw a big growth, a boom in private security companies being almost the first responders in our communities when it comes to dealing with crime. As people that work so closely with South African police services, what do you think is the disconnect? Are there, some scenarios that leave you very, very frustrated when dealing with South African police services, that you feel, maybe that's the reason why a lot of South Africans now believe it's better to subscribe to a private security companies? Well, what are some of those shortfalls that you guys notice, and they make it kind of not impossible, but difficult to work with our government law enforcement agencies?
Well, look, I mean, I mentioned the 30th June protests, and
Mm,
we saw the success, and we saw that no one entity in South Africa can do it alone. We have to join hands. We have to have structures in place to deal with crime daily. Um, any private security company that feels that they can tackle crime in their operational area without joining hands with the police um, are fools. We know that the police has a clear mandate to investigate crime. It is their mandate to deal with certain issues when it comes to public safety. And then there's the mandate of the private security to protect assets of the clients, to protect private property. And I think working hand in hand, we can keep our community safe. The disconnect comes when private security companies or the police work in silos where I mean, we've come to a stage where we realize that we also have to work with our private security partners in areas, because how do we keep a community safe? How do we keep public areas safe if we don't all work together as private security companies in our respective areas? So I mean, those partnerships are key to solving our crime issues in South Africa. The initiatives like the E2 campaign, which is the national partnership, the official MOU signed between the private security industry, Business Against Crime, and the South African Police, is one such an example. The Civilian Crime CCI and Civilian Crime Network, headed by Dr. Riza Patel, is another one, which is the provincial MOU.
mm,
And us at Vision Tactical support these initiatives. We back a lot of the campaigns that these initiatives stand for, because we know that no one entity can solve crime. South African crime requires this multifaceted approach by every level, and of course the political. We saw this protest, we saw the
mm,
elections, we saw the political world. We saw the minister come out and embrace the security and say that we are partners. Let's work together. Let's create a coordinated jock. We saw the premier, we saw the acting national commissioner go out in public, meeting with private security on the ground, private security members in the parades, in the official parades that were deployed for the protests, for the elections, the use of resources from the private security industry plugged into the operational centers. We saw what a coordinated approach, what difference it made. And we saw how communities felt safer. People went out, people felt safe. There was
mm.
again, I mean, the common crimes that we see every day that we've become so used to seeing, we saw a total decline for those few days. And my question is, why can't that be done every day?
Very, very good question. Yaseen Theba, Director of Vision Tactical. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, one last question, man. Before I wrap up this interview, this is for you guys, our listeners at home, and I wanted you to engage with us 061 Do shocking videos still affect you, or have they become part of everyday life? When you see crime, people getting shot, people getting kidnapped, and what do you believe is the single biggest reason violent crime remains so persistent in South Africa? I want to hear your thoughts on 061 Send us a message or a voice note. We're going to take a quick break. We're back with you after this.